Hello and welcome to this currently unnamed movie podcast in question mark. I'm only saying this because that abbreviates to the Come podcast. Um, we are not really a movie podcast. We're just trying this out. Maybe we're having fun. I'm Asuka. Hi. With me is Karl.
Hello.
And yeah, we watched Suspiria, the 1977 horror film by Dario Argento last night, and we just wanted to talk about it for a bit and see if we have fun doing this. Uh, we both took some notes what we want to talk about, so Carl, do you want to start with a thing you want to?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I can just start by saying that Argento a real one for this one. Um, he it's the first movie of his I've seen. I think it's the first you've seen as well.
Yes.
And obviously you've heard stuff like the cinematography is really good. His shot composition is really good. And yeah, that's basically what the movie is to me. It's a bunch of really nice shot compositions, cinematography. Um, and like I guess the music is the first thing that I hadn't heard a lot about that stood out to me. I think it was made by Goblins, a band or
Mm.
orchestra of some kind.
With
Um,
from Argento. So much like John Carpenter in Halloween, Argento actually
oh yeah, yeah,
also composed the music, which it's very comparable to Halloween as well. I think.
yeah, yeah. I can definitely see that. And yeah, the music it did not disappoint. I think it's very clear that Argento went for a more atmospheric kind of movie with this one, and obviously the music plays a big part of that. And a lot of the scenes. I guess the first like kill scene, for example,
Mm.
really elevated by the music. I think I talked to you about it during the viewing, but like the way this movie builds suspense, both with like angles with and obviously with the music, is probably some of the best I've seen from the genre.
Yeah, I think that's especially where the comparison to Halloween works, right? Because both films take like music as a just as a cue for uneasiness, and both films aren't particularly scary in themselves, but the music builds up that tension. And man, the Suspiria music that's iconic, right? Like
Yeah, 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 definitely.
that's just memorable. That's something that if you ever hear it again somewhere, you will recognize that that's Suspiria, and that's really cool.
Yeah, definitely, undoubtedly. I think, yeah, I definitely think the best parts of this movie are those really suspenseful, uh, where the music hits the I don't know music terms. Is it the crescendo?
I don't know either.
Yeah, when the music goes fucky,
When the music
uh,
is fucking. That's the
when the
technical
music
term.
goes fucky, and you can just tell that something's about to go down. Um, and it doesn't disappoint at all in those aspects. I think the first kill in this movie, top notch. It's some of the best I've seen.
It's really
Her
fun.
Yeah, her gazing out the window, suspense slowly builds with the music. You know there's something wrong, but you don't know what, which is peak horror cinema. And then those eyes appear, which they are a bit dated. They look like they're from Scooby Doo.
I think they look like they're from Detective Conan. This entire film is so immensely Detective Conan or Case Closed. I think that's how it's called in the US.
Yeah,
Just like even that the killer himself is in like this black bodysuit with like just the eyes open. That's like such a Detective Conan thing to do. Of course, it would be like the other way around. Suspiria being older than Detective Conan. Um,
oh yeah,
it gives
yeah.
it a goofiness, but like a genuinely interesting goofiness.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I haven't read or watched Detective Conan, but the whole like guy with just eyes,
Hmm.
I guess has become a staple of the horror like mystery anime thing. I think Danganronpa does it as well. Probably a bunch of other things that I can't think of right now. But yeah, I can definitely see how that make you think about that. But then just this, I seem to remember the arms as being really hairy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, this really hairy arm appears, breaks the window, and she's just like pulled into the window, and it's at the same time a slow burn while also being really, like, mostly because of the music, really exciting, really thrilling. Has you on the edge of your seat as well. And yeah, I just think that scene probably the best part of the movie. Not to say the rest isn't good, but it really had me like right from the start. It's exactly what I look for in a horror movie.
Yeah, I mean, like especially considering the rest of the film, like it's not a slasher film, right? There's also just like 2.5 kills that are anything like that. I guess like the one with the blind guy, I wouldn't count. And you know, I mean, he dies, but
Yeah, I mean, I could see the argument for this being a slasher film, right? But
yeah, I mean,
that's obviously an entirely different podcast.
exactly. It has similar ideas, but like just this like one moment, the first kill, it like sets a tone where I think like the movie not immediately following up on that tone is also just very interesting, right? Like we go from the slasher film to like a completely different kind of film between the first kill and the following scene, and that sets this like eerie tone that I like a lot about the film.
Yeah, tone is definitely, like I said, it's definitely an atmospheric piece. I think I have written in my notes here. Yeah, it's very clear to me that Argento wanted to create a visual and atmospheric piece of media rather than a woven story, which obviously is my opinion. But I don't think people would disagree with me on the fact that Argento definitely put a lot of his effort into the things we've been discussing, and less of his effort into the things that we haven't felt like discussing yet, like the character writing, stuff like that.
I do have to say, well, I agree that it's more like about atmosphere. I do love how straightforward this film is. Right?
Oh yeah, I don't mean it as a negative at all.
I mean, of course, right? But I just think it's so good that like it's not heavily psychological or even psychosexual, right? It's just about this witch's coven that for some reason leads a dance school.
Yeah,
people are like getting close to unraveling it, and they get killed.
Yeah, it was definitely a breath of fresh air in that way that a lot of these more artsy films, they tend to be very hard to follow, right? The plot tends to be buried in subtext, and you need to really think about it and watch it several times.
There's this idea that horror always respects the fears of the time it is made, right? There's actually I don't want to talk too much about this because I read this and I already forgot like half about it. But
yeah,
whether
Asuka's the film student between us, by the way.
I'm the film student, right? And recently I read a bit about horror films, and there was this interesting idea that for U.S. American films, vampires and zombies basically change in popularity depending on the leading party. And I'm not sure how that was anymore, but I think like when Republicans are leading, zombie films are more popular because Democrats are afraid of like this like mindless mass robbing them of their life. But while Democrats are leading, vampires are more popular because they are like this like high profile, right? Like, oh, we're so smart. It might be
it's the whole Illuminati lizard people thing.
Exactly. So, right. So my point is, it's interesting that horror film is like that. But in 1977, Argento was just like, aren't witches fucked up? Right?
Yeah.
There's no, oh my god, I think like there's like, I'm afraid of poverty or something. It's just aren't witches fucked up.
Yeah, like witches. I mean, granted, I haven't seen as much horror as most people have, but I feel like witches is a severely underutilized antagonist force in horror
Mm.
movies.
It's definitely not like one of the main things.
Yeah, which I guess that's like witches aren't a huge thing in society anymore either. They're also a bit difficult to make scary, I think, compared to supernatural monsters. Like usually you're more interested in the things that the witch can summon, right?
Also, I think it's just because witches are like so much more European, I think, right? Because they
Oh yeah,
get
yeah.
more from European folk, and obviously a lot of film just comes from the US. So, right, this wouldn't be about witches if it was an American film, but it's an Italian film, right? Something like that. Like,
Yeah,
there's
definitely.
surely still ideas of witches in American culture, but it's just
Yeah.
much more common in European
Yeah. I
pagan
do
cultures.
love um I do love that Argento using witches as his main antagonist. It basically means he can do whatever he wants, because witches can do anything with
Yeah.
magic, right? So he can make the dog kill its owner. He can make weird bats attack people,
Hmm.
uh, have strange hairy arms, kill people through windows. Like everything, he doesn't need to have one singular tone with the spooks in this movie.
Yeah. I mean, it's never explained why the dog is suddenly a murderer, but witches.
I I took it as like the kid did something with the dog,
Hmm.
or like somehow the witches possessed the dog or something
Yeah,
like that. I mean,
probably
that's what I mean, right? You don't need to think about it because a wizard did it, right?
right. Yeah, exactly. Like that's not the point of the film, right?
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. There's witches in the school and fucky things are going on, and it's all just an excuse for Argento to put people in the middle of windows
hmm. And to put them in colors, because I think we do
and
need to
colors as
talk
well.
about
Yeah,
the colors.
which I did some thinking on this, and I've discovered the reason for the colors.
Hmm.
So I feel like this movie, and we discussed it as well. It wasn't made with a massive budget, right?
Hmm.
And what I think happened is that when Argento went to get the lighting set up for the movie, the only thing he could find was the Christmas lights on his parents' attic, and he
Yeah,
just made it work.
yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, we talked about this a bit. I was a bit sad that the colors themselves didn't feel like they had much purpose other than being colors, right? But
Yeah, yeah,
but it was still just cool to look at, right? Like more again in the atmospheric experience kind of thing. I love the chase scene where Sarah, the friend who like unveils the whole thing before Susie, our protagonist, does. When
yeah,
she gets chased and is about to die, she flees from red into blue into yellow or green, I think. So
yeah,
she flees through the colors, and that is just really cool, like in one scene. And also, what I really liked, what I thought the film would do more because it did it right at the beginning, is that the color red led our eyes. We are introduced to Susie in like red light. Then we see the exit for the airport where she's like arriving in Germany, and we see a woman in a red coat go outside. And I thought that would already set the tone for how the colors are used. It isn't as much, but here and there you see like just a very specific red spot where something important is about to happen.
yeah, yeah. And I think like, I mean, as you said, if there's probably a reason behind the colors that we haven't discovered yet, but at the very least, it definitely helps set the atmosphere of there's something eerie going on. This is a strange place, right? The uh, the dance academy from the second it's introduced, it's a very strange place. It's all red in a very drab Germany, which
That's
you know,
how Germany is.
yeah, I've been there.
That's just how houses in Germany look.
Yeah, this movie, it definitely reminded me of the time I went to Germany. But let's not get into that. But yeah, there's definitely something strange about this dance academy, right? And even like the set of the dance academy in particular, I definitely thought it added a lot to the atmosphere of the movie as well. It gave me kind of dollhouse vibes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, which I guess you could read that as like the dance students are like pawns in the game played by these witches, right? Like they're playthings.
I haven't
Um,
understood yet why they like front as a dance academy, why they make these students live there when they are just gonna kill them anyways.
yeah, I did write down some questions I had about the plot. I thought about it a bit. I think I might have figured some stuff out.
Hmm.
Um, I also don't know, and I have to give full disclosure for this one. I've seen the remake. You haven't, right?
Yeah.
So I do not know if maybe I'm like imposing stuff from the remake onto this movie in retrospect. But the reading I have is that the witches, um, like the movie doesn't go into detail about what the witches are actually doing. They're just doing witchy things, right? I feel like they want the students under the roof to keep an eye on them, and I think in particular they want Susie under the roof because she saw Pat when she was leaving, right?
Yeah.
And she could be an obstacle for them. And I think the scene where Susie is feeling very tired during the dance, I think that's witch fuckery, right? Because they want to keep her bedridden.
Yeah.
They're drugging her with her food. And this is so she doesn't remember anything important. That's my read.
Definitely. Like the doctor is definitely in the hood with the witches, so to say, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so my read of the movie is basically that it's just a dance academy where witches are. Like as you said, it's a very straightforward plot. One girl figures something out and runs away. But Susie, the main girl, happens to see something, right? And the witches don't know exactly what she knows. Although she does kind of tell them what she knows, and that's when they decide she should die, right?
Yeah.
But they're like, okay, this girl might know something. If she isn't living on our grounds, we can't keep an eye on her, so we need to get her here. So we get her sick, and then when she's here, we drug her food, so that she can't investigate the mystery. And that's basically it, I think.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Right.
It's a bit disappointing. I will say, and I'm not going to compare it to the remake a bunch, but the remake goes a lot farther with like the students at the academy and how they engage and stuff like that.
Yeah. What's the remake like in comparison otherwise? Because it's also not by Argento.
It's extremely different.
Okay.
It's 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 not even the same movie, other than a couple similar story beats, and of course the same characters being there. But this is definitely, yeah, the people who remade this movie, they didn't want to make Argento's work. They definitely wanted to make their own work, and I think it's a lot better for it. I personally think the remake is better.
Yeah, so my film student friends, when like 2 years ago I voiced interest in Suspiria in the new one, they all were like, "Yeah, but watch the original first." Which I didn't do until now, and not seen the new one yet. I'm not sure yet whether I'll do that soonish or whether I'll keep that on the list for a long time. Do you think you would have taken something else from these movies if you had watched the old one first?
I think that if I had watched the old one first, there would be a lot more mystery going on for me. Right? And this is to not give anything away, particularly about the remake. The remake isn't particularly subtle about the mysteries. It's very clear from the get-go that there are witches in the school. So that's not the main mystery of the remake. In this one, it very much is the main mystery, right?
Yeah.
There's, although I wouldn't call this movie a mystery-oriented movie either, because things just kind of happen, right?
Yeah.
It just unravels itself. But that is the main focus of the plot, is Susie figuring out that this school has witches, which witch in particular, Helena Marcos, and then her killing Helena Marcos. I think the plot can be summed up as that.
Yeah.
That's not at all the plot of the remake.
Interesting.
Yeah, I definitely suggest giving it a watch sometime. But this is a podcast about the Dario Argento version, so
that it is.
But yeah, the music, the suspense, the atmosphere, I loved it all. I think there's plenty of really good scenes in this movie. The sleepover scene in particular is one that stuck out to me, where they have these curtains and everything.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of a stage play, right?
Oh, definitely.
Like you have the headmistress sleeping behind them in her raspy, heavy breathing voice, and them, stage whispering in front of her. Which is a very, very theater thing to do, because in real life she probably would have heard them.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and they're talking about the thing that's happening behind them. And you can tell just from the silhouette that there's something wrong with this person. I feel like she looked very hairy through the silhouette, which I think was supposed to tie us into the murder that happened earlier.
For me,
but that might... Yeah?
It looked like she was transparent. Right.
Oh yeah, that could also be it.
Which also worked, because in the end, she is invisible for some reason. Witch magic, right?
Yeah, definitely. But I think that scene really... yeah, I thought it was really well executed. I thought the staging of it was really nice. It definitely stuck with me. And the whole heavy breathing thing is definitely, as we've been talking about, it helps add a bunch of atmosphere. It helps establish this character as there's something wrong with them, right? And then when we hear about this very ancient witch, we can immediately tie it into it being this character.
Yeah.
And at this point, we don't yet know why Sarah, right?
Sarah's the friend.
Sarah's the friend, yeah. So at this point, we don't yet know why Sarah thinks this is such a big deal, right? Which I wasn't sure if the movie was going to go into that. It does later on, which is a good thing. And yeah, we don't really know why it's a big deal to her. All we know is that there's something strange going on. And I think that's this movie in a nutshell. We know there's something strange going on, and then it unravels itself, and then we know what the strange thing was.
Yeah, I completely.
Which again, not a bad thing.
Yeah, that scene definitely. I mean, just on a also importance for the story, that scene definitely stuck out as interesting. But there were a few others that were just visually cool. I really liked the pool scene, just because colors and symmetry and stuff.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And yeah, as I've mentioned before, the chase scene when Sarah flees from the murderer.
Yeah, I wanted to get into that because I think that's the other standout scene I have. I think my big three scenes are the first one where the first kill scene, and then the one I talked about, the sleepover scene, and then the chase scene. I think that's the other scene where the music really, really does a whole lot, and the whole suspense building that I was talking about in the beginning, where that really kicks into high gear again, because that scene is really good. And then it concludes with, I think, the most unintentionally funny scene in the movie.
The wire room, you mean?
Yeah, where she forgets to look down before she jumps.
Yeah, and she's just. I think it would have been great if it was actually barbed wire.
Yeah, definitely.
It just like yeah, we're keeping barbed wire up in the cellar.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess there are two reads that either it was like they were just keeping it there, or like the witches knew she would try to escape from there. Um, which I don't know which read is more valid than the other. I think it would be more fun if they just happened to be keeping it there.
Yeah. Also, just like the wonderful like horror film logic of the killer slowly opening the door, like constantly failing and doing it like very slowly, even though it's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
really not hard from what it looks like, and her like fleeing instead of just holding the lockdown.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That scene in particular with the slowly opening the lock, I think that maybe dragged on a bit too long
Mm,
to be suspenseful or exciting or scary.
yeah.
It's also just, it looks a bit stupid, right? Like, I don't know. It's this weird blade that kind of looks a bit dull.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
it was like a very dull razor, it seemed.
yeah. Which I feel like a razor is only scary if it's sharp, right?
Mm. That's true. I mean, you can probably beat someone to death with a razor.
Yeah, but
But
I
maybe
wouldn't be scared of it.
that's why the killer took so long, because he wanted Sarah to flee through the vent into the wire room, because he couldn't actually kill her with the.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely a read, right? I'm just
This is
thinking about the alternate universe where we're supposed to be afraid of a killer with a dull razor, right? Like Friday the 13th, but Jason's knife is really dull.
Hmm.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, that scene, it's also the scene where the colors go the most fucky.
Yeah.
So it definitely like warrants more in-depth watch. Um, I do wonder if by watching this movie you could piece together the layout of the academy itself.
I mean, I don't know, to be
Yeah,
honest. It. I mean, who knows?
yeah, because I wonder if like if you knew which rooms you were in, that could help add significance or something.
Yeah, yeah. But I think
Um,
we don't see enough of the academy to like really be able to do that.
yeah, probably, probably.
But yeah, I totally like agree with what you said before about like how you feel about the film. It's definitely not my favorite film, but it's just like nice to watch. It was also like really easy to watch. Just went down like butter.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. That's the movie just happens.
yeah, exactly. And
Um,
what I've like, I've not seen a movie directed by Argento, by Dario Argento, but I've seen one produced by it. There, Dawn of the George A. Romero's Dawn of the Dead. There's like different cuts, and one of them is called the Argento Cut, which is the one I've
oh,
seen.
okay.
And all I know about that is that it's more action focused. Like I've not seen the other cut, but the Argento cut is a bit more action focused, apparently. Well, in the other one, they probably talk more. And I think that says a lot about Argento, right? Like what you see also in this film. He's not interested in, like, you know, Dawn of the Dead is not a very deep film. It's a very good film, but, like, there is no subtext. It's all text.
Yeah,
Well, the subtext is, like, really, like, shallow. Zombies, consumerism. Actually, the people are evil.
yeah,
The people are the zombies. And so they're now focusing a bit more on action in that. It shows you what Argento is probably like.
yeah. Dario Argento knows screenwriters who use subtext, and they're all cowards.
Exactly. So, do you think you are going to watch more Argento films?
Um, well, the issue with that is I don't know if I'm gonna watch more films, right? But if someone were to suggest watching a film with me, and it was made by Dario Argento, I think that would definitely up it in my like how excited I would be to watch it. Especially if it was Dracula 3D. But no, I definitely think, yeah, I would definitely watch more Dario Argento. I think this movie, like on a cinematography level, like if his other movies match this one, I definitely feel like I'd be in for a treat watching Argento, because if nothing else, it's nice to look at.
Yeah, that is true. It was very nice to look at.
Right, like I'm not exaggerating when I say that Argento really put all his effort into the cinematography and the shot composition and the everything about how this movie looks aesthetically. It's definitely a ride in that way. I just don't think he writes characters well.
I don't think he tries to, right?
Yeah, and again, that's not a bad thing, because this movie doesn't need it. I think it would be contrived if it did, because I think the worst scenes in this movie are the ones to try and focus on the characters or the mystery. The scene with the blind piano what's the word? Composer? The guy who plays the piano. He's blind, and he gets fired, and he's implying that he knows more than they think, and he dies. And I mean, the good parts of that scene are like the suspense building and the atmospheric stuff, but I don't care about him as a character. The kill was probably the worst kill in the movie. Yeah,
it was a bit like a red herring, right? Like the way it was done, and then like he's on this big plaza, and the dog starts barking, and everything's dark around, so you expect people to come and kill him, but then it's just a dog that attacks him out of nowhere.
Yeah, and I think the most important takeaway from that scene is like that witches can do whatever they want, I guess.
That they can.
Yeah. But overall, I think that, I think that's the weakest part of the movie. Because it's not set in the academy either, which to me was the most interesting place to be.
Yeah.
It's just a regular street, which I guess if you know anything about architecture, maybe the streets tell you something. There was like a building in the background.
Yeah, I know it's supposed to be Freiburg, which is, an actual town around the city in Germany. I've not been there, so I don't know if like there's anything meaningful, but it just looked like what do you call it? Man, I don't know what the English word for it is. It's just where the local, like the city government, the mayor and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Right, or like maybe a card or something like that. That was probably what that was.
Yeah, maybe Argento just wanted to remind us we're in Germany.
Maybe he did. And we did right before that. I have a scene where he went to a pub. And there were like very Bavarian people dancing.
Yeah, that's true.
That's very German film.
Yeah, because this movie being set in Germany, I don't think like it does a whole lot for it.
No, it's really just like her going like literally anywhere from New York. Just like it needs to be a place she does not know, as far away from where she knows as possible.
Yeah, which definitely, like I said, I can definitely relate to this. I've been in Germany. Yeah, and I think how do I say this without sounding like an asshole? I think a better writer could have done something with the whole being in a foreign place aspect of the movie. I don't know if Argento was even trying to do that, but it feels like he is, based on the first parts of the movie. With the cab driver in particular, I guess. Like, and again, this isn't a narratively driven movie, so I don't know why I'm even suggesting narrative things, but like having scenes where she has nowhere to go because she's on her own in a foreign country, or her not understanding the difference between strange witch rituals and just German people being German, right? Like, because that's something that's happened to me, right?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
weird rituals.
Yeah. I mean, we don't have time to get into that, right? But I've seen how you live.
Excuse me, what is that supposed to mean?
I think we're running out of time. Yeah, but no, like, yeah, I mean, now I'm just talking about a different movie that could have been that would also be called Suspiria. Um, but yeah, also just the opening narration of just Susie is a dancer and she started the academy in Germany. Like that tells you how much this movie cares about its narrative in a
Bit.
way.
Yeah.
We don't get any pre-characterization of the main character. The extent of characterization we get for her is basically that she likes to get things her way. She's headstrong, I guess, or has a strong force of personality.
Not that we see much of that because she's drugged for half the movie.
Yeah, she's drugged for half the movie, but I guess the implication is that that's why she was strong enough to kill the witch or something. I do know that this movie is the first in a trilogy by Argento, which makes me interested in watching the other ones. Although the fact that the other ones are not nearly as famous as this one makes me less inclined to watch them.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is definitely Argento's most famous movie, right?
Yeah.
So it will be interesting to see what the heck that man was up to before and after Suspiria.
Yeah, I want to know if Argento is a good director or if he's a hack, right? Is he a one-hit wonder? Because I've seen bits of Dracula 3D, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, next time on this podcast, Dracula 3D. Specifically just the giant CG mantis scene.
Hey, maybe. Oh, imagine if this movie had... Imagine if Dario Argento was sitting around making this movie and he was just dying to put in a giant mantis scene, but he couldn't.
Yeah.
Because the technology wasn't there yet.
That makes so much sense.
Like, he's like, I guess I'll have to go with the good cinematography instead.
He's like, okay, we're doing this ad if we have to, right? Like, I get it, but like, think about it. What if there was a giant mantis?
He's like, can we do the mantis scene? And they're like, no, CGI hasn't been invented yet.
And he's asking, yeah, he's been asked
that the stain, the glass.
He asked that every year since, until he finally got to make Dracula 3D.
Until he finally got to make Dracula 3D. And then he could finally hang up his Christmas lights and get out his 3D rotoscoping suit. I don't know what they're called. And he could make the mantis he's always wanted to make.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I think that wraps it up, right? We've talked enough about the mantis and everything regarding Suspiria.
Whoops.
Mostly the mantis. That's the important part.
Yeah. I mean, this movie. I feel like I've been focusing more on the narrative bits, which aren't even important. But like I said in the beginning, this movie, it definitely is an atmospheric, visual. I almost want to say masterpiece, right? I haven't seen anything that comes close to it, really, in the same way, and I definitely see why it has the status that it has.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's that for the 70s, I totally get it, but also I've seen films by Zhang Yimou, or whatever Chinese names are pronounced.
Yeah.
He has done some Wuxia films. He has done Hero, House of Flying Daggers, Shadow, which, the special thing about Shadow is it doesn't have colors. It's just like a lot of gray tones. And Raise the Red Lantern, which is also just a very red film where like the lighting and everything does everything. And sure, these movies are like 20 years later, so you can't compare them that much, right? So for the 70s, Suspiria is amazing visually. I think
Yeah.
it doesn't like hold like it's still good to watch and stuff, but it doesn't hold up in its excellence because movie has moved on, and like especially films like Raise the Red Lantern or Hero just do so much more with colors.
Yeah, I would have to look into them, but
Mm,
I think if nothing else, uh, Suspiria is from my experience,
yeah.
uh, like it's visually good, but I think what makes it still worth watching even in 2021 is that it's visually unique, right?
Mm,
It's extremely visually unique, and Argento definitely has a way of framing his shots and stuff that even in other like visually stunning movies of the same genre, even you don't really see.
mm,
I've watched a lot of horror movies lately, and I can't say I've seen a lot of Suspiria influence in any of them, to
mm.
be honest. Which I think is a shame.
Yeah,
Uh, it's really nice to look at this movie.
I believe you. I very much believe you.
Yeah, but
Okay.
yeah, I guess. Would you rate it highly, Asuka?
Um, I mean, yeah, like I liked it, I guess. Right. I don't really have a number for it.
Yeah,
I would like if someone was like, oh, I'm interested in like some like more like older weird horror films, right? Like not super old, but stuff like I'm so fed up with like the way modern horror works. I would be like, do you want to have a fun time? Watch Suspiria, 1977, director Dario Argento. And then they
yeah,
wouldn't because nobody listens to my movie recommendations. Um, no,
yeah.
so,
But in a perfect universe,
yes, exactly. Yeah, I
yeah,
definitely recommend it to people to watch it, and I will maybe watch it again at some point in my life.
yeah. I think I would go somewhere similar. I think I gave it 3.5 on Letterboxd, um, which is like yeah, it's very visually pleasing. Um, it's very nice to look at. It wasn't ever a bore to watch,
Mm,
and it went by pretty quickly. So it is a good movie, and like you said, I would definitely recommend it to someone who maybe wants to get into something a bit more artsy,
mm,
right? But that isn't hard to follow because I think that's the perfect niche for this movie. It's very
yeah,
easy to follow, but you can definitely like watch it and then act pretentious to your friends about it.
that is true. Yeah,
Right? Like, oh, do you even understand the reasons for why they had the red and green and blue lights? Right?
exactly.
Yeah. So I definitely think it's like it bridges the gap between easily digestible horror and the more subtextual, psychological,
Mm,
really think about it stuff.
yeah, and we know like getting into artsy movies is the end goal for everyone.
Yeah, definitely. If you're not watching movies to be pretentious, then what are you even doing? Right?
Exactly. Okay,
But
let's.
yeah, I think just to go on another a small tangent, I think what's more interesting about this movie is how it inspired the remake.
Mm,
Um, I think together these two movies are very interesting. I think if there wasn't a remake, I would find this movie a lot less interesting.
nice.
But the
Then I
fact that you
will
can
definitely
take
have
this
to watch that.
story and tell it from two completely different angles, and that it has been done as well,
Mm,
um, I really like.
nice, nice. I will have to watch the remake eventually. Then
Yeah, maybe we can talk about it.
maybe we can. Yeah, let's wrap it up here then, right?
Definitely, definitely.
Anyone who got this far, thanks for listening, and we maybe you will see us again. You can, if you don't know either of us, you can follow us on Twitter and or like anywhere else. which will obviously be in the description for this thing.
Yeah, we're both aspiring Twitch streamers.
That we are
making it big.
Getting like the good reputation from podcasting, because that's like so much easier to get popular and then streaming, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We just need to get the Garcast shout out and we'll have like 10 listeners on one episode.
That's true. We gotta get that crossover working.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for listening, and hopefully see you next time.
Bye.